with the former city council lady, Miss Ann Brown-Williamson, and retired flight attendant. Man, you have a lot of accomplishments. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, hello, Joe, first of all. Just so that you will know more about me, I am a native of Rock Hill, grew up here, and for many years I wanted to leave because I thought Rock Hill was entirely too slow for myself. And I'm proud to say that I am a product of the 60s, which was a time of turmoil, racial discontent, civil rights movement, and I was a part of that as a youth with the NAACP. And proud to say I am a graduate of Emmett Scott High School, which was an all-black high school, where I learned what I needed to take me through life.
And what would you say attributed to your success?
I am proud to say that Emmett Scott High School and all of the teachers, but even before then, I had teachers in elementary schools, for whatever reason, who took notice to me. And even in elementary school, third grade, I remember I was always grading papers for the teacher. She would grade my paper first. I was always chosen to go and work in the principal's office, do the bulletin boards in the hallway. So my background stems from that community.
Right.
It takes a village to rear a child.
Right.
And I was very fortunate in coming up in an era such as that.
And with that, let me ask you this. What kind of sacrifices did you have to make going through that period to get to where you are today?
The sacrifices you have to make is listening, knowing what is against you, and being willing to take the time of studying and knowing the challenges you're going to have to go through and pushing with adults even as a teenager, making sure those doors are open for you, because everywhere you went there was a sign saying colored only, whites only, and being the obstinate child that I was, if it was the pretty water fountain, it didn't matter to me what sign was there. I was going to use that water fountain. So making the sacrifices of not allowing your fear to get in the way of your success, and being a dreamer.
Right.
Being a dreamer and visioning what you are going to do, how you want your life to be when you grow up. And I got all of that as a child.
Right.
But the sacrifices was being steadfast. You had to give up playtime. You had to do those things that were going to get you to where you wanted to go.
Right. And what kind of adversities did you face, going through that period of time that you can maybe speak about?
There was a time we couldn't go into the nicer movie theaters. You were always on the outside looking in. And you had to keep your ears open and be observant to the changes that were being made. And of course, you had to learn from your adults about voting and doing those things that was going to get you, and also networking with the right people, and those people who were energized and looking to the future.
And what would you say attributed to more of your success? And I know we're going to get into a little bit more of you being a retired flight attendant. I definitely want to dig into that, because I'm sure that there were not many African Americans or black females flight attendants during your time when you were doing that, or were there any?
Well, being that I was a late bloomer, there were many, because it was 1992 when I came on board. However, as a child, I had dreamed of becoming a flight attendant. things got in the way, getting married, having children, and you're thinking, well, it's too late now. But I learned it's never too late. You have to keep that dream alive and keep pushing. And when the day came that I was able to apply for a part-time job at the airport, it was because of that things started to happen. I was furloughed for 18 months, and when I came back to the airline as part-time, someone took notice of me and suggested that I apply to become a flight attendant.
Wow.
And what really made me determined to become a flight attendant was when I was told that I had been furloughed too long and I would have to wait.
Wow.
Sometimes when people put up closed doors, you push harder and you take the steps and you make phone calls and you call DC, the headquarters, and you find out why you cannot apply.
Oh.
And after calling DC, I was told that I had every right to apply right then and there. And I decided right then and there, I will be a flight attendant.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It's a mindset.
Right.
A lot of it is a mindset no matter what the roadblocks are.
Right. And with that mindset, just for some of the listeners, how would you define success in your mind?
For me, success is being determined, knowing what you want. And if it fails, try something else. But you always get up, dust yourself off, and keep it moving. And connecting yourself with people who are engaged in those activities that you are wanting to get into. So you've got to put yourself in that position and just don't stop. And when I was interviewed to become a flight attendant, I was proud to say I was just coming to get my job.
Right, right. Oh, wow. And you've been, I know you've been, like I said, the flight attendant and everything, but going into that, there had to be some kind of fears. What were some of the fears you taking that step to become a flight attendant?
Joe, honestly, there were no fears for me. And even more so now today, I have learned to allow my faith to be bigger than my fears. I was elated that I had the opportunity to get interviewed because my mind was made up. And that was an individual me because that's my personality. But there have been other things that I was very fearful of. Mm-hmm. But it's forging ahead. We cannot allow our fear or our doubts. And when people tell you that's not the right thing for you, you shouldn't do that, right. You shouldn't uproot, you shouldn't leave home. You have to tune those people out and you have to walk away from those people. They may have the best intentions, right. But you have a right to find these things out for yourself.
Right, and we find that that's what keeps a lot of people back, like you're saying.
Exactly.
They want to get out there and do things, but they want to listen to other people, and they let that fear hold them back.
Exactly.
And obviously, they just can't do that.
They can't. They shouldn't.
Right.
And you may fail, but there are other things to do. I did many things before becoming a flight attendant. I didn't go to college until I was 27 years old with 2 children, 2 young children, a husband, a home to run, and I went full time.
And you're a busy lady.
I love being busy. I am winding down now because now I want to have me time. But up until, I guess you would say, for 50-some years, I have been very, very busy. Mm-hmm. And after I finished college, it was Winthrop College at the time then, right. I decided one day, I think I'd like to go to modeling school. So I went to Barbizon Modeling School in Charlotte. I graduated. I became a model, the Southeast, for some time But because my daughter had become a teenager, I decided to come home and take care of the children. But I enjoyed that. It didn't go to waste because every year at my children's school, I was there on career day as a speaker, talking to young people about their career and the many things they were going to have to do to prepare themselves. It's something I just always believed in, and we have to be an advocate for our youth.
Right. And given your many accomplishments, and I know that you were former city council lady, retired flight attendant, former school teacher, former model, and now, and over the last several years, you've taught etiquette to youth and adults. Given all your accomplishments, how has that influenced people that you know, or people that are coming up trying to get into those things?
It makes me glad in that I meet so many young women, especially, and they will come up to me reminding me when they were teenagers, and they still remember the advice that I gave them. And even now, I am an advocate. There again, my faith outweighs my fear. So when I am out shopping, grocery shopping, different stores, when I see people, doesn't matter who they are, the Spirit will send me to them. And many times it's what they needed for that moment.
Right.
So it's a matter of encouraging. Even now, I walk up to young people. Are you registered? How old are you? Let's get you registered to vote. We have to give life lessons to people, not just youth, but there are those people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. Sometimes are looking for a kind word, an encouraging word. And for whatever reason, I think that I have been blessed to recognize that in people. So when I'm out shopping, I will just go up to a person. And I think it's important for us to go up to people, although when we do, we must mean what we say.
Right. Right.
I like that.
Right. Sticking to your word.
Sticking to your word. Don't say it if you don't mean it.
Because back in the day, your word meant everything.
That's true.
And nowadays, with some of the youth or some of the people maybe my age or younger, their word don't mean anything.
In my family unit, my grandmother, my mother, I came up in a time when we had very little materially, but we always had enough. And my mother, instead of screaming at me, she always had a Bible verse. And she would give me that Bible verse and then tell me, you have a choice. You can do what the world says to do, or you can do what the Word says to do.
Wow.
And I always decided to do what the Word, because that's what she believed in. I cannot find anything in my home life, as poor as we may have been where money was concerned, but we were rich in love, knowing that we were cared for. And my mother, she always made me feel as if I could do anything.
And would you say that she was your greatest support system?
My mother was my greatest everything. So between my mother and from third grade until I graduated from high school, I got nothing but motivation and encouragement. And I was always such a girly girl.
Right.
I would ask, please let me wear my Sunday dress to school. Please let me wear my Sunday shoes to school.
Right.
That's my personality.
Right. Right.
But now that sometimes didn't go well with some of my peers at school because they didn't understand.
They didn't understand.
They didn't understand. I was by myself in that respect.
Right.
However, sometimes it hurt my feelings, but it didn't change me.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the main part there. It did change.
It did not change
It didn't
me.
change your drive.
It did not.
Your determination
It
to
did
get ahead.
not.
When I'm sure you saw some other folks coming through at that time that obviously, like we said a little earlier, it did.
It did.
It did put them back, and people put them down, or they look at them a little different, or they say something wrong or whatever. They just put them down. They don't want to move forward.
But we must dream and then act on those dreams. We must read. When we watch TV, we must watch something worth watching. That's what I did growing up. I watched those sitcoms where I saw how people worked hard and accumulated. And I never doubted, never. I always said, I will have my piece of the pie, no matter what.
Absolutely.
No matter what comes, I'm going to have mine.
Exactly.
Because God does not love anyone any more than he loves me.
Absolutely.
And I take that with me.
Absolutely. And that pie is big enough for everybody.
It's big enough for everybody.
And that's
but believe that you deserve to have your share.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why I'm trying to bite off as much as I can get.
I bite every day.
And let me ask you this. Given all your accomplishments, from what we talked about earlier, what are some of the principles of a success that you would say that you go by in life?
Have some strong values. Do what is right. Do what is just. Don't try to take unnecessary shortcuts. Do it for the right reason.
Right, absolutely.
But always make yourself available. Tell yourself, as my mother always said to me, when you leave home, you be prepared, because you never know who you might meet. Be prepared. And when I leave home, I am prepared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just a couple final questions that I'm curious to know about. If there's one person that you could talk to from history to gain some kind of inspiration from, who would that be and why?
I never really thought about it, but there are two people. Harriet Tubman, her tenacity. What made her, what gave her the drive to do what she did for her people? You see, we don't want to be out there by ourselves, or we shouldn't, successfully. But we need to want to bring others with us.
Right.
And the other person is Abraham Lincoln. Why? He's a white man. But everything I have read, every movie I have ever seen, and I have been told he had slaves himself. And even with all of that, he did the right thing. And we should always do the right things for the right reason. But there are so many others. Even in the 60s, we had matriarchs back then. I lived around the people in my community fighting for civil rights. And I think that's why I always had a drive, because I was around a driving force in my community. So when you see people sitting on the sideline, it's time for you to move. And my mother always made it plain. If you're the smartest one in your group, you have no one to learn from.
You got to get another group.
You've got to get another group.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the smartest one. You may think that sounds good, feel good, giving yourself a pat on the back. But then many times when they learn from you, they're going to start moving away. So you want to keep yourself in a situation where you are surrounded by a plethora of people who will elevate you, motivate you, and say, "Come on, you can do this."
Right. Right. Well, that's some good advice. That's some definitely good advice.
It's not. We need money
Mm-hmm.
to survive. But with having money, if you do not have peace, and if you have things that you're not proud of, the way you got your money, you're not successful, in my personal opinion.
Right.
You've got to have that peace and satisfaction.
And where does that drive and passion come from in you? Because I hear a lot of it, and I know you're well respected here in Rock Hill area, and I'm sure across other counties that touch us. So where does that drive and passion, all that, come from?
It comes from my grandmother. My grandmother could not have been more independent. I got my independence from my grandmother. The other, I believe, I was just born with it. It's who I was at the age of 4. I am the youngest of 4 children, but I was always the boss. I was the one who gave my mother, when she came in from work, the report on all of the children. My sister being almost 10 years older, a brother was 6 years older, and a brother 3 years older. But I was in charge. Now, I would tell her what had happened during the course of the day. And she herself said, when I was an adult, for whatever reason, I was different from all the other children. And I was her partner in that whatever she needed, whatever she wanted, she always came to me, my mother.
Wow.
I was her best friend. She was my best friend.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Given that, if you could write a book about yourself and your experiences, what would you name it, and why would you name it?
I would say my book would be Keep It Moving. Nothing is over until it is completely over. I have had experiences where I have flatlined twice. The first time in 1980. The second time, 2017, I had a heart attack. Flatline on the table while they were putting the stent in. My family, my friends were really concerned and frightened for me. I see having the heart attack as a blessing. You've got to find a blessing in the worst events in your life. There is always a blessing. Had I not had the heart attack, that blockage may not have been discovered and things could have been worse.
Wow.
But see, God brought me back for a reason.
Absolutely.
That was 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
When I had the heart attack, the next day I left town and was gone had the heart attack on Tuesday, went out of town on Wednesday, came back on Sunday, called the doctor on Monday, and that's when I discovered I'd already had the heart attack.
Man, that is something I obviously did not know. I mean, look at you now. You never would have guessed that, or even thought that you
I know.
had a heart attack.
But you see, having the heart attack, they discovered the blockage. And you have to be happy within yourself. I cry. I have moments when I feel lonely, left out. But my heart, my spirit is always happy. And that's when I go back to that place. And at home, all I have to do is go into my kitchen. That's my happy place.
Wow.
It doesn't matter what's going on. If I go in the kitchen and start cleaning, cooking, I can sing a song. Sometimes I even dance to the music on the radio.
75 years old. Dancing.
Yes.
Getting down.
All the time. It's not over. But keep it moving.
Right.
Let's rejoice more than complain.
Right.
If you can find that you are blessed, you're fortunate, you're content, whatever your station is, you're successful. And keep working.
Absolutely.
Remember, we have been talking, you have been helping me to get this etiquette class going again, but the COVID-19 has put that on hold. But this too shall pass.
Absolutely.
This too shall pass.
Nothing lasts forever.
That's right.
It definitely will. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for agreeing and allowing me to come to interview today. Any final thoughts that you may want to give some of the listeners on, and I know, we talked about retired flight attendant. Any final thoughts you want to give someone that may want to get into that type of business or go into that type of field?
I am going to say, Joe, that whatever your passion is, find someone who is already involved in that hobby, that career, that job, and talk to that person. Because when people are happy with what they are doing, it really is not a job to them. When I was a flight attendant at the age of 47, I said, no way, I am too old now. And the young lady who inspired me said, that's what they're looking for now. They don't want the 20-year-olds because they don't stay. They want the more matured people.
Right.
So in my class, I thought, I'll be the oldest person, but the oldest person in training class was already 50 years old.
Wow.
So I was not the oldest person. But also, when the young lady came to me to apply, I didn't. And when she saw me again 2 weeks later, she asked, did you apply? And I said, no, I did not. I said, but I promise you, I will. That's where your word is supposed to be your bond.
Right.
I had said to her, I promise. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I can honestly say if I die tonight, I've never broken a promise to anyone in my life. And that is a given. Mm. So when you give your word, and when I went for my interview, I knew what to say.
Right.
And after becoming a flight attendant, after 6 years, I was chosen #1 flight attendant out of almost 10,000 flight attendants.
Wow.
And I was flying with people who had 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, and this is my 6th year, and I am the #1 flight attendant, the very first #1 out of Washington, D.C., and the second flight attendant of color out of the company.
Wow.
In 6 years.
Wow.
It was not a job. Wow. It was a pleasure.
Right.
I love customer service.
Wow.
That's why, for me as a customer, you have to give me good customer service because that's what I've always done.
Well, we appreciate everything you've done, all of the accomplishments you've had, and your wisdom and your advice. Again, thank you so much for allowing me to interview you.
Just remember, it's not over, and whatever you do, as my elementary teacher shared with me in 5th grade, any job you do, do it well the first time, and you don't have to repeat it.